This is KHOI 89.1 Story City Ames, and you're listening to I Am Able Iowa, where we discuss the ability and disability. I'm Nancy Baker Curtis, school teacher, board president for the ARC of Iowa, and a parent advocate. I will be your host for today. I'm joined by my co host, Zach Meekum from Allies in Advocacy. I'm super excited for our guests today, and I'm just going to turn it over to them right away so that they can introduce themselves. We've got an amazing team of employees from Johnston Community School Districts. And so I'd just like to go around the horn and have each one of you introduce yourselves and state what your role is within the school district. Shauna, can we start with you?
Sure. Hi, my name is Shauna Shanahan, and I'm the special ed director in Johnston. And I'm also the principal at ChildServe and our new launch program, which is our 4 Plus program.
Hi, my name is Josh Saba. I'm the district's new transition and compliance specialist.
Nicole or Maggie?
I can go. My name is Nicole Beer. I teach at Johnston Middle School. I'm a PE teacher in strength training, and I also teach adaptive PE, and I'm the coordinator of the Dragon Games here at Johnston.
I'm Maggie Hattinger, and I am one of the teachers for the 4 Plus program here at Johnston.
Thank you all so very much for agreeing to be on the show today. I like to think that Iowa has the greatest public schools in the country, but I am so proud to be an employee of Johnston Community School Districts, and so I may be just a little bit biased. One of the things that drew me to Johnston were all of the wonderful programs that they have. So, can you tell us just a little bit about the different programs in Johnston's that serve students specifically with special education needs?
Sure. I'll go ahead and take that one, and then you guys can jump in if you'd like. So we have so many programs, which is great. And so, we have all of our public schools that everybody can go to. And then we also have a therapeutic program in Johnston. We have, which is called JTP, Johnston Therapeutic Program. And then we have Excel, which is our high school, alternative high school for some students. And then we have Launch, which is our 4 Plus program. I mean, we have so many different programs. We have all the programs, but I would say that those are our biggest programs that we offer right now. Did anybody else have anything to add to that?
Can you comment on ChildServe?
Yeah, nice job. We also serve a lot of students that live and utilize ChildServe as a resource. And then I'm also like I said earlier, the principal of the ChildServe, because we have a couple of classrooms that are inside our ChildServe buildings.
So that was actually one of the things that drew me to apply to Johnston Community School District. I used to serve on the Family Advisory Committee for their parent board, because I myself have a son with complex healthcare needs who requires special education. And I actually see the teachers from Johnston coming in to ChildServe to service the students. And when we were going over to what they call Med East, right?
Sure.
The other side of ChildServe, where most folks don't even know exists or know that there are kids that actually need, because of their specialized healthcare needs, to live at ChildServe. So I really love that. And it's one of the things that I think makes Johnston School District such a great place. I want to kind of talk and dispel some myths. Or educate, because we're all teachers in this room, right? People hear special education, and I know that they all have different ideas. It might depend on how old they are or where they grew up. So, how does Johnston define and approach special education today?
Yeah, I think when we think of special education, I think a lot of times people think of a place or a person, and really special ed is a service that we're able to offer to students that have a disability. So, I just think it's really important to understand that our students come to all of us as gen ed students first. And then if we suspect a disability or they've already been identified to have a disability and then receive special ed services, then, that's when they would, come to us and we serve all kids. Access is really important. So meaning every child with a disability or without a disability should have access to all things. And I think that's something that Johnston does a really good job at. Sometimes I'll be honest, it's hard and it's very complex trying to figure out how we give every single student access in the way that they deserve, because sometimes we're building programs or, we're tweaking different ways to provide education, but we do it. And that's the beauty of it when I'm looking around, seeing all these faces, like these are team members that come together and problem solve so we can make sure that all students have access.
Word that you use several times is access. And so, as an administrator that's kind of responsible for providing access, what does it mean to you, access?
Sure. Yeah. So never, ever should a disability stop or be in the way of someone or of something that somebody wants to achieve, participate in, be a part of, right? Everybody deserves that. And so if that looks like I want to be a cheerleader, my gosh, it might look a little different, but we're going to make sure that you are able to be a cheerleader. If you want to play a sport, we're going to help you and do everything in our power to get you to be able to participate in that sport. So we just it's really this mindset of truly understanding that it doesn't have to look the same for everyone in order for access or for it to be fair, right? It's that whatever student needs, they receive to be able to have access and to participate. And what it means to me, Zach, I think that's a really good question. I think everybody can answer that on this, screen here. Is what it means is that's what we live and breathe. That is why we do what we do. Is sometimes it's a maze and, tricky, but we have this deep passion for, all students, but especially students that have disabilities. And we want to make sure that they, have the best educational, opportunity and experience in Johnston. So.
And I would agree with that. And I resonate with that. I have a sticker on a water bottle and it says, inclusion isn't a place, it's a mindset. And I truly believe that. My own son is a great example of that. He is someone who does not communicate with words. However, it does not mean that he does not have thoughts or ideas, or he is not capable, or that his opinions are not valid. And so all the things that you said really identify with me. The school district which he attends is another great example of a fabulous public Iowa school that works and strives to meet the needs of all students and to include them across various spectrums of their school community. And so I just absolutely love that. Obviously, you referenced your incredible team, which just a small portion of,
Yes.
There are so many people that work in public schools that make them function. I often thought when I first started teaching that, the people you need to know are the custodian and the secretary. I mean, you need to know your principal and your administrators, but don't get me wrong. It's the people, the associates, the day-to-day folks that really help kids access and be successful in their buildings, right? And have opportunity for recreation and all kinds of different activities. So I want to take a little bit of a shift though, and I want to talk a little bit more about system-wide support. And so obviously, Shauna, you're the director of special education, as well as wearing a lot of different hats within your role. So what are the top priorities you have right now for supporting students with disabilities?
So I will take you down just a little bit of a story. So, I think the number one priority is it goes back to access, is that all students can access their education and be able to learn and feel safe, at school. I would say the special ed department currently has really decided to hone in on a couple of things to, if you're an educator, there are so many things on teachers' plates. There's just so many things on our plates all the time as educators. And so I think what's really important is when I started in Johnston, this is what my third year, I think, was that there's so many different things, but really let's just hone in on a couple of things and get so good at them and then put them in our bucket of skill and move on and get really great at a couple of other things. So, we are really focusing on transition work right now, which for people that aren't aware, transition work starts at age 13 when a student has an IEP, which is an individual education plan. And so that means that we're really starting to dive in and trying to figure out what students are interested in and, how and when and where they want to what they want to do and where they want to go after after their senior year. And if they're not quite ready or still have some skills to learn on living, learning, and working, like in the transition piece, then that's when they could possibly attend the 4+ program. So we have last year we spent over 100 hours as a leadership team developing and creating a better transition process. And then we also opened up our 4+ program, which was currently being housed at the high school. We were just able to, grow it and, build it a little bit better. And then through that, we're really working on compliance. So anybody's in the special ed world, they know it's all about compliance and following the law at all times. And so through that transition and through our prior written notices and our data keeping tools, we're really working on compliance. And so just making sure that we're doing what we're saying we're doing and that we're using that data to drive our decision making to, steer a student's educational process. So, and again, it goes back to serving kids no matter what, no matter, if we don't have something already going on or a program built and we have somebody walk through our doors, all kids deserve a free, appropriate public education. And by golly, we will provide it. So those are our 3 big pieces right now. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything, but as a system, a pre-K to 21 system, that's what we're really working on right now.
I love that. And, what you said about compliance and serving all kids, I feel that not just as a parent, but also when I put on my teacher hat, right? When the kids come into my classroom, I want to make sure that they have access to all the appropriate modifications and accommodations that they need so that they can learn the language. I teach Spanish. And so just because you have a disability doesn't mean you can't be bilingual, right? In fact, we know there are kids with special education needs or diagnoses that actually have lots of special interests. And so I love to be able to do that. But compliance is a huge ball of wax. And so you guys have even taken a step to make sure that you have a compliance person, and that's you, Josh, right? So
That's correct.
So why don't you break down compliance and your role and what it looks like day to day and why it's so important, not only to the students and their families, but it's important for teachers like myself or Nicole.
Sure. This new compliance role to the district is super special because what it will help me do is help advocate for the teachers and help teach them on what that compliance looks like and what the expectation is from the district for them. So it'll look a lot like an instructional coach. I'll meet with teachers. I'll provide the advice. I'll help clarify again what the district's expectation is and how they can apply it through their systematic process, whether that just be on the IEP, whether it be within their classroom, and just being able to collaborate with the different PLCs, collaborate right with the teacher right in their classroom. And so my day can look different from day to day, how we want to provide that instruction from me to the teacher. So there isn't like a special cookie cutter, but it's just, coming at it at a vantage point of like an instructional coach. And then, of course, I'm getting fed from our district leaders, Achieve, on what their expectations are and making sure that everyone knows what it is and is living up to those expectations. So it's fun. It's a new perspective, but such it's so important. I think it's really valuable to have somebody like me coming in and making sure that the teachers know what the expectation is and being really a service to them. I know compliance can sound tricky and even scary, but I want them to know that I'm a support for them to help them be able to address what needs to be done.
Can
You
I add a
mentioned,
little? Oh, can I
well,
add just a little bit
Yeah.
yeah,
to what
and I
Josh is
also
saying?
want I
Oh,
want somebody to define some of those acronyms, PLC and Achieve, for the folks who don't
sure.
live in the special ed world or aren't educators. I'm sorry to interrupt and talk
No,
over you.
that's perfect.
So Achieve is our state system to enter all of our so everybody in the state of Iowa writes their IEPs in Achieve. And so um one thing that Josh, I think sometimes it's kind of hard to like toot your own horn, so I'm just going to do that for him. So it's not
Humble.
just that, you know, a lot of exactly what he's saying is that compliance piece can kind of sound scary. And I mean, to the point where I've gotten emails of, what's this compliance guy about? Or, you know, type thing. And I'm like, but Josh has been so great at going out and building relationships with our teachers. But the one thing that has been, it's consistent, and the teacher, like I said, teachers have so much on their plates. And then you add, you know, being a special ed teacher where they're progress monitoring on whatever goals have been written. And then they have to not only do that, but they have to enter that data into Achieve, which is the state system. And then Josh goes and pulls that data once a month, I'm sorry, once a month. Yeah,
Twice.
to make twice a month is twice. Okay. I thought, well, I was like, well, he really is an overachiever. Twice a month to make sure that everybody has their data in. And it's not an I got you, but I will tell you that our teachers, I would say, are high performers anyways, but that just gives them a little, like, they know that we're checking. And we know that, you know, they want all of their stuff in because they work so hard. And so that is a huge piece. And then the other thing that he's doing, we've created that work through that transition piece. We've created a couple of fidelity checks, if you will. So we have in the special ed world, it's called a PWN, a prior written notice. And that comes to every parent after, or guardian after an IEP. And it really is a summary of some of the major points that, you know, are decision drivers in the IEP. And Josh will run that PWN through our fidelity check to see what percent that they get on a prior written notice. And so, and if it's not higher than an 80%, then Josh goes out and reteaches or meets with that teacher. And, you know, it's just like in a professional learning community, which is a PLC, you know, he does a really good job at that. And
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
that with transition as well. So, we're not just saying compliance on pulling some data. We're talking, that's really what Josh is. If he's not out in the community making community connections, which he'll talk about in a little bit, he's really working on that compliance to help us be better as a unit.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to sit down with the teachers and just see how important it is for them to grow into their craft and sit there and talk through examples, talk through what they've done, and just continue to build our capacity of being able to be compliant with the state mandates.
And what you're talking about is really, and you use this term also. And so, you know, we're teachers, and when you get a room full of teachers, my husband would say, "Oh, you're all teacher talking me." But you're talking about instructional coaching, and you're talking about that collaborative learning model where, yes, Josh, you are an administrator, but at the same time, you're coaching teachers on how to be better teachers through a mechanism which is compliance, right?
Correct.
And in doing so, the goal is to ensure that the student and their outcomes, their individual needs, that's why they have AP, is at the center, right? And that person-centered, student-centered approach is what is so important and why this position is really so unique.
Absolutely.
So obviously all of that requires like a delicate balance, right? You're juggling a ton of balls, and some balls you can drop because they bounce, and some balls you cannot drop because if you drop them, they'll shatter, right? So, how do you balance compliance with the individualized student centered approach? Because that's the tenuous part, right?
Um, to I guess to answer that, I do the best with what I got, and just use the tools that Director Shanahan commented on, and just being able to be really intentional about the platform I've given and the time I've been given to get to the teachers that are going to collaborate, and just I don't know, use that collaboration model um, that's there, and do the best we can with what we got.
And what role does the IEP play in that approach, right? Because really, that's your guidance document here, in
Right.
addition
Yeah.
to
So if I've mentioned something that's systematic before, I help make sure that the IEP looks like it's supposed to look, again, addressing all the mandated parts, and then helping teachers authorize those to make sure what they have on paper is going to also take place in the classroom.
and sometimes, and I know that this is something that I've seen when I've sat in my own child's IEP meeting, right? I always take it back to myself and to my experience with as a parent. Sometimes, you'll sit at the table because the parent is also a member of the IEP team. For anyone out there who does not know or has never sat in an IEP meeting, a parent is a critical role in the IEP team. And
Mhm.
when you sit at the table, sometimes you come up and suggest ideas. But then when it comes down to practice, implementing that really does take a collaborative team approach, right? To,
Absolutely.
ensure, to ensure that all of those things can be implemented.
Yep.
Um, I've heard a lot of the acronyms defined. Did we define IEP though?
Yes, I think
Okay.
Shanna did earlier, but if you wouldn't mind doing it again, because we are teacher talking our audience, and I think that that's the point that Zach's getting to. Well, he was a teacher. If you're just tuning in the middle, you may be coming in a little bit confused. So, what's an IEP?
Go ahead, Josh.
An IEP is an individual education plan that is authorized to meet the student's needs, where the team, parents, teachers, admin, they all come together and they collaborate on what that need looks like and agree to address that student's needs.
And these aren't created for every student, right? There's high standards in order to qualify. And that's really done through the identification process, right? And that's all a data driven process. And so if you're just tuning in, we want to make sure that you understand not every student can have it or qualifies for an IEP. This is a specialized service that is mandated under federal legislation like the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or IDEA. And so I just
And
think
I
it's
sorry, and I guess what I'm asking more directly is like what does this look like in practice, right? So like what is this plan? What kind of things are laid out in an IEP, and how does that help the student and the teachers support the student?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, we're going to look really at your academic needs, some behavior needs, health needs. It's going to be lot more intense than what a general education kid or even a 504 student would have. And it's really going to drive with goals. It's going to have accommodations. It's going to have different ways we can serve a student in different environments, such as PE, transportation. There's a lot that can be put in an IEP.
Right, right. And really it's a problem solving document, right? It's like here is how, like if a student has seizures, here's a laid out plan on how we respond
Right.
if the student has a seizure, or
Mhm.
if the student has needs to access text, for example, Braille, right? The plan would be like, here's how we make sure that student has access to all of their materials
That's
in
a
a way
great
that they can
example,
read them. Yeah.
right? I'm a
The
coach at
tailored,
heart.
oh,
Oop, go.
no, go.
No, I'm a coach at heart. And so when you think about having your playbook and you know what you're going to do as because you're the offensive coordinator and you have all these different plays, whether you're running the ball or passing the ball or there's a trick play or whatever, not, it's all outlined in there, right? It's all organized to make your team flow and how you communicate that. You all have different coaches, you have different players doing different positions. And so you're going to execute that play with all those different stakeholders involved in being able to be successful to move the ball. You're going to be as outlined and as specific as you can be within this IEP. And hopefully that every kid that comes through, you score a touchdown with, right? And you can celebrate their success and their growth as they, quote unquote, go downfield. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I would say another way, there's still parameters around. It's a tailored playbook, if you will, for a student to be able to access their education at no additional cost to the parents. And so I think that's part of the free in FAPE. And so the whole idea in that IEP meeting is it's not necessarily we can just put everything in that IEP that people want. We are still, bound to these boundaries of FAPE, free, appropriate public education. And so if somebody wants, this would be silly, but someone wants proposes, say a parent comes in, say Nancy comes into a meeting, she's like, I want you to buy me a car, right? And I can be like, well, gosh, we can't do that because that has nothing to do with FAPE. So I think there are these parameters around this tailored program for each student, and it's really for them to be the most successful. And I think one thing that people find really interesting is that sense of free. And so, kind of going back to what Zach said, so like if somebody needs Braille or somebody needs a large screen computer, or they need a certain type of wheelchair to be able to navigate the building, then that would be provided for the child during the school hours for no additional cost of the parents, because every child deserves to be at school and to learn at high levels. And so I think that part is really important to know as well.
I kind of want to transition here for a second. So I think this is a great time for us to take a minute and let our folks know that are listening that you're listening to I Am Able Iowa, and that we're talking with a great and amazing group of educators and leaders from Johnston Community School District. With us today, we have Shauna Shanahan. I'm going to say your last name wrong. Josh Saba?
Saba.
I'm so sorry, Josh.
It's okay.
Nicole Beeler and Maddie Haddinger. So we've been talking a lot about the overarching system perspective. We've been using a lot of acronyms. I really want to dive into the programs that have teachers and students working directly together, because that's really where the magic happens. And that's where I'm so honored to be able to witness all of this. So if we could just take a few minutes to talk about the launch program. It's a relatively new program that you guys have. And while some folks may have seen information about it on the news, others may have not. So can you talk to us and explain to us exactly what launch is and who are the individuals that the launch program serves?
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead.
No, I want to hear your answer first, but I was gonna jump right in, and of course we get Maggie talking here too.
Yeah. And I don't know if you noticed, Nancy, but as soon as you mentioned the launch program, we're like all of us started smiling, because I could not be more proud of the teachers in the launch program, the work that has been put into this program, and it's just such an amazing thing. So like I said, we had a 4+ program at the high school, but then we really kind of dreamt up through all of this work as a leadership team of no, we really need to focus on 4+ learning. And so everything through the Department of Ed and the BOE is 4+. And so what that means is you're 4 years in high school plus. And so students that have been identified with a disability have the opportunity to continue schooling until 21 if there is a need. So from the big shift from high school to the launch program or the 4+ program is that you really then start to work on where is the student unique in the living, learning, and working skills. So that's what launch is. It is, I will just tell you a little bit about our program. And then, like Josh said, I want both of them to talk, but we were able to, dream it and build it. It's kind of like, if you build it, they will come type of thing. And we were able to build out a wing at the district office for our program. And Maggie runs one of the classrooms, and it's really like the apartment. I want to be really clear, nobody lives there. It's set up for a living situation so kids can work on living, learning, and working. And then we have this massive continuum of students that need to work on living, learning, and working, and their abilities are vastly different. And so then we have another part of the program that are like more set up more of like a classroom, but then we have a leisure area. They go to the gym. Josh has community, works with community partners. And so really the program, A, it's amazing. And B, it's just so amazing to see the teachers and the kids and their smiles and all the work that they're doing. It's amazing. So I will turn it over to Maggie and let her kind of talk about anything that she needs to add with that.
Yeah, so I am one of the teachers for the launch program. There are two others as well. And we're kind of split above, kind of around the students' needs, right? I think some people think about it as ability, but it's really not their ability. It's what they need and what supports and skills that they need to access and to learn in order to be as successful as possible when they walk through our doors for the last time. And so what we really, really focus on, and all students that come to us have an IEP, an individualized education program, which we've talked about. We have a very, very special ability to really individualize that down even more. So the students that have come to us have made it through high school, and they're just not quite ready yet to be done with schooling, right? So we have smaller numbers, and we're able to really hone in on what are those skills, those resources, those strategies that you need in order to be prepared to meet the goals that you want to meet post-secondary, right? And so some of our students we have are working for paid employment, full-time jobs, part-time jobs. We have some who just want to be able to volunteer sometimes. And then we have others where really their main goal is to be able to use leisure time or be in a supported group setting with assistance, but be fulfilled in that, and not to just be in that setting, but to thrive in that. Sorry. Josh, why don't you kick in for a second while my dogs lose their mind?
Launch is just, I mean, it's more than a place. I mean, what I get to do is be our community liaison. And so what that means is I get to go and create the partnerships with different community businesses. For example, I've met with Dunkin' Donuts, right? And Dunkin' Donuts right now is hosting one of our students who has now moved into paid employment there. He does a bunch of different tasks there and supportive roles. I have some students that are out at different business like Eden Crest, helping out the senior living center. And it's really coming together to help them become more employable. And so what we can do is work with the employer on skills that they still need to have to be able to be independent, or skills that they still need to get, and just make them employable. But not only that, help them develop those skills that they can use at the job, that they can feel like a purpose to get out of their house, to get up, to help in their community. We have students simply volunteering at many hands, and they have that sense of belonging, that purpose, that feeling that gets us up to do our jobs, right? And so I get to help bridge that between them and the community and teach those skills. And that's really, really important, really, really fun to me, because my goal is to like have our students to um, uh, want to participate in their community and know that there's value in teamwork and being out with people and just being able to create those relationships, create that purpose, and do it in authentic, meaningful ways, and employing them in somewhere of their interest. Like a student wanted to work in a restaurant setting. So I'm going to go out and try to build that communication or that connection with those people. I have another student that wanted to work with the senior level people, right? And so I go out and try to build that connection there. So it's more of that tailor made as well that Director Shanahan was talking about, is just really trying to find that avenue that they're interested in, that they have some skills and then building their skills in that way to be successful in that community. So it's really, really important to me, and it's just a lot of fun, and I couldn't ask for um, launch to I couldn't ask more out of this position. It's a lot of fun. It's very fulfilling, and you can just see growth. Um, and then the last thing I'll say is like people come to understand like everybody's needs are met with these situations, right? With the people coming to our students coming to meet with the employers and seeing that they may have a disability, but they can still do what's required and even more. So that's like the cherry on top for me. So,
Yeah.
all right.
And I think one of the really important parts of the whole launch program, regardless of what section or part you're in, is that we do tailor that to the students, right? So I have some students that need to work on budgeting. They will pay their own bills at some point in some way, right? Um, we also have students who are never going to manage their money. So we're not going to have everybody working on financial literacy, right? Like that's not important. And so we really involve families in that. What are your expectations for your child when they leave this program? And if the students are able to verbalize and also bring into that conversation, and really our other two teachers do a phenomenal job of that, having them pick from different pictures or using different types of switches to acknowledge answers to different transition questions and all of those things. But we want it to work for a student, right? If your goal, I have a couple who do not want to have paid employment, which is fine. So we're not working on what you do with a paycheck, right? We're working on getting them out in the community to see things, to volunteer, and to become meaningful members of the community. And so that's one of the things that we really work on is tailoring it to the specifics of what do you need to do to be prepared, right? To be fulfilled when you leave here.
Um, in the special ed world, there's a phrase that's used very commonly, tracking, right? Where sometimes, whether explicitly or implicitly, students are kind of told where they're going to end up. This happens a lot in the gen ed classroom, general education. So that'd be like the English room, the PE room. Um, and so some students kind of can fall through the cracks because they've been tracked to say, well, you're never going to have a life outside of school. You're never going to have a job. You're never going to pay your bills. Um, and sometimes it's the parents telling them that, right? I've seen that. Um, and so when you're like helping these students to kind of plan their future, how do you balance the challenge of like being realistic about ability, but also challenging students to kind of believe in themselves and push themselves maybe a little further than they initially thought that they could?
I think that's a really, really good question. And that's why it is so important to have those students involved in those conversations, especially as part of those team meetings. We have a great example of a student whose parents were, pretty sure that they would only be able to volunteer, and so we started them that way because that's, what they were interested in as well. But throughout the year, it's become pretty apparent that they could probably work part-time doing that if they wanted to, right? And we also want to make sure the students want to, right? So the ones that I've talked about where they won't have paid employment are typically the ones who have decided that they don't want paid employment, right? And their families are okay and have, the ability to support that. But we do have, then we have the opposite of, we have students who want to be physicians, right? And there realistically are limitations to that, safety, knowledge, ability wise, right? And so we really want to tailor that into, I can tell that you're interested in healthcare, right? What can we do to prepare you for the most fulfilling aspect of a healthcare career that you can take, right? So I don't ever want to tell a student, and this is what we try hard with, and Josh does a phenomenal job with this too. We're not putting kids in jobs just to be in jobs. We want them in jobs that are going to further their life goals, right? So I might have you work at McDonald's because you need more customer service experience, and that's a great entry level job to get customer service experience, right? I'm not just going to pick for you to sack groceries or work at McDonald's because that's what I think you should do, right? We want to have a very clear path as to what are we setting you up with now so that that can help you either learn what you would like to do later, or prepare you with some of those skills that we see that you might have a deficit in. And we've seen that with lots of different students. We've had students who have wanted to work in childcare and we send them to a childcare center and they come back and they're like, I lied. That was horrible. I never want to do that again. Right. And so giving them those different experiences, but also giving them the skills to be able to go as far as they are able and push themselves as far as they are able, to do those different jobs. And I think it's great because parents sometimes see like, oh, they can do that. Or, we hear this a lot. They do that at school, right? And I have pretty typical functioning kids, and I think the same thing a lot of the times. And I'm like, are you serious? They do that at school, right? And so just keeping that communication open and, yeah, well, they do all the laundry here, so they could probably help you out with it at home. They know how to fold clothes. They sure do, right? And so I think it just helps to keep everybody, but it also expands, that what you were talking about, Zach, with that thought process of, oh, but they'll never get there. And it's, well, have you tried? And it
We're
really
really
gives us the
challenging.
opportunity to try.
We're really challenging mindsets and stereotypes,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's in
Absolutely.
families or communities or businesses.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's where we have the opportunity to really showcase the power of the team coming together, community members, educators, families, to support students and really put student interest and student needs first. Because when we focus on students and outcomes, what we're able to see is oftentimes more success than any of us ever thought. And I see that with my own child when it comes to him and his ability to use his communication advice or device, right? After having been told he'd never be able to talk, we just had an experience recently where he asked me in Target to buy him a monster truck. And he didn't just say, I want it with his talker. He said, please. And I was like, how many do you want, buddy? Because it was just such an amazing moment. We've done a lot about system. We've done a lot about work and community integration. One of the things we haven't talked about yet quite are recreational and athletic opportunities for students to not just be well-rounded community employees or volunteers, but to also have their best healthy lives. And so I want to transition a little bit to our other guests we have on here, Nicole Beer. Nicole, you talked a little bit about peer PE and dragon games and how that I just want to explain to our audience who may not know, what is peer PE?
So PE or peer PE is a program that we have here at Johnston. That we have our special education students who are partnered up with another peer helper, and they just do regular PE class, just like any of the other classes. We adjust the activities a little bit, but it gives them an opportunity to participate, and but it's at a more appropriate pace. and level alongside their peers. So with our peer PE program, we actually also work together with peer art. And those students go from peer art to peer PE every other day. And they have to apply, the peer helpers have to apply to be a part of the program, because we want peer helpers who genuinely want to be in there and genuinely want to, build relationships with um, our buddies. So it's a program that it was already started when I first got hired here in like 2000, I think it was 14 or 15. And it's just kind of built from there. We did not used to have best buddies. We did not used to have like a unified sports team. And so within, I don't know, all these years that I've done peer PE, I think it's become, more popular and kids are like, oh, this is really fun. Like it's meaningful. And we've actually, Johnston has now created more opportunities, like leisure opportunities outside of just the PE class. I should say there's more opportunities outside of school even. You're muted.
You're muted.
I love this.
There we go.
It's you. Nancy did it first.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's the cold medicine, but I'm gonna make it. I'm not crying. It's just this one eye leaking. But I want to say that I've seen the impact. I've filled out the peer PE forms for my students. They all happen to know that I have a child who has complex healthcare needs. And I really love this program. They share with me time and time again the impact being around these students has on them as individuals and people, right? And our job is to help grow students into good humans who go out and make the world a better place. I also, through my prior experiences at ChildServe, know some of the participants who are involved in peer PE, and I get to hear it from their parents too, how amazing it is to be a part of that integrated and inclusive environment, right? It's not necessarily a place, it's a mindset.
Mhm.
And so I just want to share kind of that aspect of it. I know another part of what you do, and I learned about this first with ChildServe, and then eventually with my own son's participation, is you organize a huge event called Dragon Games. I even see your displays down at Bubble Ball. I saw the whole Johnston Stadium the year that Charlie was the Bubble Ball feature impact story. And so
Yeah.
I would just love for you to talk a little bit about what is Dragon Games. And I know it's coming up here real quick, and there's going to be
Yeah.
a lot of kids participating.
Yeah. So when I first got hired here, I had been talking with one of the special ed teachers here, and she had talked about that they used to go to, I think it was Indianola, to a Special Olympics event or something. And, it was just a really long day, and it was too far for a lot of the kids to go and travel that far and be gone all day. And she's like, we should do something like that here. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's try it. And so we took a bunch of stuff out to the football field the very first uh, year that we did it, and it was just the middle school and high school special ed students and some peer helpers. And I think we did it again the next year with like that, and then we decided, well, while we all have all this stuff out, let's invite the elementary kids. And so then it kind of turned into a bigger thing, more stations and more kids wanted to help. And then I would like, I started inviting former ninth grade peer PE helpers back from the high school to help because they had so much fun when they were in ninth grade. And so that was a big thing for them to come back. And now we have best buddy helpers that are at the middle school and high school. So those kids help. And it's a pretty big deal. I think some kids think it is to help, and they love doing it. We started inviting other school districts, I think probably like 3 years ago. Maybe it was 4 years ago. We had DCG and Urbandale the first year. I think DCG came a couple years.
Mhm.
And then we've had Woodward Granger and Sadell also come. And the amount of kids that they bring is still, with all of those school districts combined, it is still less than the amount of kids that Johnston hosts. I think we have really close to like 200 special education students that get to come and participate in it, and they still have, quite a bit less than that. So it takes me a lot of work to, pre-organize everything ahead of time, but on the day of the Dragon Games, it's all these different stations set up on the football field and the track. We have adaptive bikes, we have a sensory station, we have button switches, basketball, giant bowling, regular bowling, bubbles. We have all sorts of different things set up, and it's kids that are running the stations. You're not going to walk around and see all these adults working with the kids. It's Johnston middle school and high school students that are running the stations. They're the one giving high fives and hugs, and they're the ones that make the day fun. Like, it's not me, it's not Shauna, it's not the special ed teachers. It's the kids that are doing it that make it really fun and build relationships. So yeah, that's kind of what the Dragon Games has turned into. It's evolved a lot from what it was the very first year. Like those first couple years that we started it, it was never like my intentions to make it this big, but that's what it's turned into. And I think that, kids love it and the child serve students love it. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And as I've worked in other districts around the metro, right? And we've been invited to that through other districts. And it was always fun to me because I've always worked with an older student population. So it's like, well, do you guys want to go this year, or do you not want? We want to give them that choice. And every time, no, we want to go. We like to see all the people from other places and meet new people. And so it is a really cool
Right.
thing that's offered, just not for just the Johnston students, but it's awesome that that's available to other districts as well, as especially the smaller ones, right? Those kids have grown up with the same kids since they were little, right?
It
And so they
is
get to see other people and meet new people and make new friends, and it is really, really cool.
It is a whole day of smiling. And from being invited from the past district I worked at, it is a time where you can just see these kids come together and just experience joy at a different level all day. And it's so much fun. And Nicole, thank you for running such a fun day. One that kids and adults come back and be like, remember when and that, and so it's just a wonderful, wonderful day.
Can you give us a brief um, description for those that are hearing about this for the first time and are maybe considering going? Can you give us here's why you need to go pitch?
So we don't I can't like invite random people, I guess. I wish that we could.
My bad.
Yeah. It could be something like that, I guess, someday where we offer it to lots of different people. But since it's Johnston students that are running the stations, we can't have just like random people that come. So that's why we've the people that we have invited they come with their school, their special ed teachers are there, they bring their own peer helpers. So it's still like a school issued event, essentially.
So essentially, we're charged, as a school district to guarantee, children's safety. And so even when parents come anybody comes to watch, which they can, they just have to stay on the stands, because essentially you would have to have a background check in order to come down and be on the field with the kids. And so we just, I think sometimes it's really important to recognize that a lot of our parents that do have children with disabilities, they don't get that opportunity as often to be the ones sitting in the stands to watch. I know a lot of parents that have, had to be along the side of their kids for them to participate. So I think that's something to really value and recognize of like, hey, mom, hey, dad, hey, guardian, hey, whoever, you get to come watch today if you want to. And you don't have to be down here making sure that they're safe or taken care of or their medical needs are being met. We've got that. So It's a pretty cool event. And I Nicole Beer, she is, an amazing PE teacher at that, just that we could just say period. But then what she does is she goes above and beyond and builds this massive day. And she's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal. It's a lot of work. And she does it. She organizes, I help this much and that's it. And she's the spearhead and she's amazing. And she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to do it. So, and she just does it for the love of the kids. And so I don't know, Nicole, if you want to talk about this year for the decade of diversity, that would be really cool because it's a little bit different this year.
Yeah, so this year is the 10th anniversary of us doing it, hosting the Dragon Game. So unfortunately, we were not able to invite other school districts this year because we are bringing in kind of a special guest to help us create this huge mural. So we invited and fundraised enough money to bring in this Zot Arts is what it's called. And he essentially has all of this adaptive equipment, and we will be having all of those 200 kids go through and they get to use all this equipment inside of the small gym in Wallace, and we'll be making a massive mural. And that mural then will get cut up into strips, and each of the schools in Johnston will get to take some of it home or hang it up, I should say. And I think kids will be making like a small piece of art also that they get to take to kind of commemorate it. So our theme is, decade of diversity. Obviously, we've been inclusive of much longer than that, but that was just kind of something that a kid came up with a couple years ago when we're like, all right, we got to start planning. It's got to be something big that we do for year 10, something that will be, everybody will remember a little bit more than the other years. So we had a lot of local companies and individuals donate money within like a month of us asking. Like Shauna and I had kind of met about this. We've been meeting since the summer, like every once in a while, and we're like, I was getting really nervous that we weren't going to raise enough money to bring this guy in. But once we kind of sent the message out, it was within like probably a week and a half or 2 weeks, and we were over halfway for the amount that we needed. And we're like, all right, we're gonna do this. And sure enough, today I have all these boxes in my office here. He sent his equipment and we're like organized and ready to go to bring him in. So it's gonna be pretty fun, I think.
I'm so excited for you all to showcase all the great things that you do at Johnston Community School District. It's evident each and every single one of you shares a passion, and you're laser focused on providing unique educational and recreational opportunities for the learners in Johnston. And I want to thank every single one of you for your time outside of your contract hours to be here and be a guest with us today. This is KHOI Story City Ames, and you've been listening to I Am Able Iowa. I Am Able Iowa airs the first and last Saturday morning of each month at 9 a.m. on KHOI 89.1 FM. You can also hear us streaming live online at khoifm.org. We invite you to share your comments, questions, and program ideas with us at doug@thearcofiowa.org. And if you visit www.thearcofiowa.org, you'll find previous episodes and more information about our program. I Am Able Iowa is produced by the Arc of Iowa, headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa, with local chapters here in Ames and across the state of Iowa. I'd like to thank you all for listening. And until the next time, this is Nancy Baker Curtis and Zach Meekum saying you are able Iowa.